Friends, Romans, Carol, lend me your ears. So, when you first agreed to come on this show, you said you would have to go through your ear collection.
That's right.
I had many questions, and then I realized, no, I don't. Them that asks no questions isn't told no lies. You have many ears, you and the goddess Kali, and I have 0 questions.
And now you have some ears.
I do have some ears, and I feel like I should go home and string them on a necklace. It will be fabulous. Thank you so much for bringing me a gift of ears, about which I have 0 questions.
I do like that the fact that you have 0 questions does imply that they could be costume ears or they could be the ears of my enemies.
I am going to make a statement, not a question, which is you are a good, responsible person with a sense of compassion and sustainability and fairness. So however you got the ears, I'm sure they're sustainable and fair trade and may even have involved some consent on some person who contributed ears. And that is a statement.
All right. And I have no further comments on that.
Moving on. Carol, you have come here with me to the Telltale Cake, and I am the host and have a name, which is Beth, and we are reading a book. Now, you came here in this super fabulous outfit. Tell me about this ensemble.
Well, it's a dress that was meant to imitate Galadriel from... It is the one that she wears in the Hobbit movies, incidentally, to the White Council, which is a collection of powerful beings in Middle-earth who are trying to stop Sauron from returning to power. But she wears white in general, so this is the character Galadriel. She's been my favorite fictional character since childhood. I was very enchanted by her small part in the book, and then when I saw the movie when it came out, I found her part extremely enchanting as well.
Now, of course, you are the character Galadriel, which brings up what we are reading and why are we reading it. We are reading The Fellowship of the Ring, and you picked this, and I'm guessing that this is a book about which you have many delightful feelings.
Yes, it definitely is. Definitely an all-time favorite.
This was published back in 1954. Since then, it has become one of the seminal works of fantasy. It is to fantasy as Dracula is to horror, I think, in that
True.
Whether or not you've read it, you are aware of its existence, and there are bits of it that show up in many places. And it's just one of those foundational things. Not that it is... Well, it is considered foundational now. When it's written, it's not really so much a foundation any more than Bram Stoker's inventing vampires. He is sort of inventing the sexy vampire, but this is not a Dracula episode. So Tolkien is drawing on a whole lot of old folklore and a lot of other things,
right,
like Lord Dunsany, and creating this work that everyone past him will reference, basically.
I also like his inspirations. I find Norse mythology interesting itself, so he drew from that a lot. And I've started reading the Icelandic Eddas, which are a beast. But I needed some background. I like Tolkien so much. I needed to read the background on what inspired him for his tales.
I have heard that the Icelandic language is actually quite close to Very Old Norse, which is more close to Old English than our modern English is.
Right.
And, of course, Tolkien was an Old English scholar and is well known for translating Beowulf.
Oh, he did a translation of Beowulf. That's very cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as we know, The Hobbit is very much influenced, in fact, somewhat slavishly so, by Beowulf, which is not a criticism. I love Beowulf. It's just such a great poem. I also
enjoy Beowulf. So I also enjoy that Tolkien was primarily a linguist and that he imagined up his own language, which is the Elvish language, in the books that he wrote. And then he was just like, I wrote this language. Maybe I should put some kind of story behind it.
There are many ways to approach a story. You can add the detail into the story, or you can start with the details and add the story later. And that's what he's going to do. Now, with our books on this show, we eat cake. And one of the many things I love about having you on as a guest is that you made the cake.
I did.
You made lembas. So can you tell me about this lembas bread that you made?
So in the books, this is the Elven way bread, which is a travel-friendly, long shelf life bread to sustain.
Calorie dense.
Yes. So it can sustain folks on a long journey, and this is what the elves give to the Fellowship of the Ring as they leave Elven country to help them along their journey.
And what recipe did you use to make this?
So I just kind of Googled lembas bread recipe.
As one does.
And then this is just kind of like a little mildly sweet spice bread. And then I decided to add a glaze because I felt like it wasn't cakey enough. So since this is Telltale Cake, I was like, let's make this a little more of a cake than a bread.
My definition of cake is somewhat flexible.
What do you think of the lembas?
I think it's very good. My first thought when I saw this was it looks like a magical Pop-Tart, which is in no way supposed to be any sort of insult.
I'm really down with that. I mean,
It's a good magical Pop-Tart.
it definitely tastes like a magical Pop-Tart.
Or toaster strudel pastry.
Yeah.
But it's good.
Totally agree.
It's a very inoffensive little piece of sweet, spicy cake.
Yeah.
I brought a bunch of different fruits because a lot of times when they're hanging out with elves, they're eating lots of fruits. So I brought a selection. We have strawberries, figs, dragon fruit, blueberries, gooseberries. I don't actually know what a gooseberry is, but
I've
they're
not
that.
had one, and I'm excited to try one. Oh, I like them. Yeah,
too.
I'm a fan of gooseberries. Dragon fruit is also perfect. There's some dragons in Tolkien world.
Smog
like
is
that.
one of my favorite characters. Smog and Shelob. Feminist Queen
those are great.
Shelob.
What about Ungoliant? Ungoliant is another large spider. Although now I'm straying into the Silmarillion, which maybe will require another episode.
The Silmarillion would request about 5 episodes, and I would probably get bored in the middle of each of them.
I feel like I should pressure you to do it then. So here's a lovely artwork of Smog by Tolkien. So this is a fun little book that I brought that is just focused on his illustrations. Smog is kind of adorable.
So that's actual Tolkien artwork.
It is, yes. And he has several delightful dragons. Let me find my other favorite Tolkien. This one. This dragon just really delights me.
There's another Tolkien short story that I'd love to talk about, Farmer Giles of Ham.
Oh, I have not read that.
It is a joy and a delight.
Is that one in like Unfinished Tales or one of those kind of collection stories?
I don't know where it is. I think I read it in a paperback where it was like just 2 collected short stories, Farmer Giles of Ham and one other one about elves going off into the blessed lands with much singing, as they do.
And presumably much fluting as well.
Possibly even some harping. Speaking of art, so we like to judge books by their covers because what else would we judge books by? And this is my parents' copy from the 90s.
Oh, I like that one.
This is actually Tolkien's artwork that's just been put on the cover in relief.
Yes, it's beautiful.
So if you run your fingers over it, there's texture.
So delightful. I like his style a lot. His little aesthetic style is very beautiful.
I'm a big fan of that. I'm especially a big fan of the relief where it's got texture because it makes it fun to touch.
Yes, absolutely. And it has kind of the Sauron's eye thing going on the cover. You wouldn't necessarily think that before reading it, but I definitely think it now.
It kind of looks like fire, but it's script. Yeah. It's really cool. I like that cover.
I also like that cover. This one is not as good. It's just the movie.
No.
No.
Now, when did you first encounter The Lord of the Rings?
So let me go back to The Hobbit on that one, because the Hobbit was my first introduction to Tolkien, and it is a wonderful childhood memory because my older brother read it to me. He's about 10 years older than me, so he had read these books, and I was a small child, and he would do like bedtime story with me and would read a chapter of The Hobbit every night. So that was definitely one of the things that made me get into fantasy in general, and I loved just the fanciful, silly way that Tolkien writes. And then, so the Lord of the Rings movies came out when I was like 10 or 11, and I saw the first movie, then read the Lord of the Rings trilogy before the second movie came out.
So I also encountered this as a bedtime story. My parents read me both The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings series. And for some reason... And for some reason, the Silmarillion.
Oh, that's great. I love it.
It was not. I might appreciate it now. I don't know how much I appreciate it.
They probably just wanted you to go to sleep already, so they read you the Silmarillion.
It helped. So let's actually get into it. Since we're here, we have snacks, we might sing some songs. Let's talk about Fellowship of the Ring. So we're going to pick up a little bit after the events of The Hobbit. And we're going to start right away with some retconning. Because in The Hobbit, Bilbo's magic ring that he finds and takes in a riddle game, it's a long story, doesn't actually turn him invisible. He becomes difficult to see, sort of like a faded out wraith kind of thing, but he can still be seen in direct sunlight. That's gone now. Now it's just full-on invisibility.
I wonder if that is because Sauron's power is growing again. So perhaps the ring is more powerful than it was while Sauron was more dormant.
It's entirely possible.
I'm going to go with that.
That's a great explanation. Thank you. So we know that Bilbo has this magical ring, and he's going to use it to play kind of a mean trick on people. It's his 11st birthday party. He's kind of over the Shire. He wants to go out adventuring again. So on his 11st birthday party, he just sort of puts on the ring and pieces out and leaves the ring to Frodo.
And pisses off most of Hobbiton in the process. Especially the Sackville Bagginses.
Especially the Sackville Bagginses.
The real villains of the story.
There's Sauron, but then there's the Sackville Bagginses. We hate them.
So I do also love, there's like a lot of content of Bilbo's snark as he leaves, including leaving a set of silverware to the Sackville Bagginses, who he caught red-handed trying to steal that exact same silverware at the end of The Hobbit when he returns home, and everyone thought he was dead and gone. So he leaves that silverware when he disappears on his 11st birthday, and the Sackville Bagginses very much understood his meaning.
Yes, they did. He left a whole lot of mean gifts along that note. Yeah. Although I don't think he actually does that on his 11st birthday, because Frodo takes over and keeps...
Oh, right.
Yeah, Frodo keeps throwing birthday parties every year until he decides to sell...
Frodo has to be the executor of the mean gifts.
Yes. So Bilbo's disappeared. Frodo's hanging out in Bag End, and he's got the magic ring. He's also got his friend and also servant. There's a very clear class distinction between him and the other hobbits.
True. Yeah.
Which is interesting, but we have to remember Tolkien was a British dude writing in the 40s and 50s. That is just a thing. So we get Gandalf showing up, and of course we all know who Gandalf is. He's this mysterious wizard who throws exploding pine cones and is just kind of fun, smokes a lot. And Gandalf decides Frodo is old enough to have the talk. Not that talk, the talk about the ring. Turns out the ring belongs to the ultimate evil dude. But this does not actually require action anytime soon, apparently, because it is years down the road before they decide to start out on a quest.
I think Gandalf he suspects that it might be the ultimate evil ring, but he's kind of just relying on, hopefully it's not that one.
We hope.
Let me check and make sure, but I'm going to just hope it's not that one.
And even after they throw it in the fire and check, it's not like, you don't need to do anything about it yet.
Still some months go in between then.
Yeah, well,
Right.
there is so little sense of urgency in this book.
There's a whole part of the story about how ignorant hobbits are of the outside world, so they just kind of live in their nice little silly hobbit bubble.
Which does sound delightful.
It
frankly.
does. They're very charming. I like the Shire. I like the hobbits and their nature. Yeah, perhaps Gandalf should have, began the sense of urgency, though.
Probably. I had a question, though. Let's say you are a very powerful evil being, and you're going to invest a lot...
Let's just pretend that I'm a very powerful evil being.
We are pretending, and we have no questions about the ears. So imagine, hypothetically, if you were a powerful evil being, and you are going to invest a lot of your power in creating an ultimately evil magic thingamajig that could help you out or hurt you if it got lost. Would you put it into something as stealable as a ring?
I don't think I would, but I have tried to learn from the hubris of others, including fictional evil beings. So I think that Sauron just thought that there was no way that he would lose possession of it because he would just wear it all the time, and he saw it as a way to, he wasn't trying to just put his power into an object that could be separated from him. The benefit of creating the ring was that he would then gain power over other beings that he didn't have without the magical talisman.
See, since he originally lost the ring when his finger got cut off, I feel like even a toe ring would be a better choice. Now,
he presumably had some like hefty boots, so it seems like maybe that would be a little more difficult to cut off.
It does make me sort of envision Sauron as like a 15-year-old at Claire's.
I really like that. They could just like pierce both his ears at the same time so he wouldn't cry.
I mean, that's how I had my ears pierced, and I didn't cry. Even a pair of pants would be better because while it is possible to cut a human in two at the waist, it's not easy.
Then you'd have a lot more gore to deal with as you claim who's going to want to wear the bloody cut in half pants? I mean, not me. just sticking a finger out of the object, not so bad.
Okay, so we have the knowledge of the ring that is probably bad, and the time has finally come where we're actually going to go places and do stuff with it. Frodo wants to leave right after his next birthday for reasons of poetical symmetry, but he wants Gandalf to come back and go with him, as Gandalf says he will, but Gandalf doesn't come. They have to sell off, like, Bag End, give away all the nasty, like, will bequests.
So Frodo was good at the secrecy part, not so much the urgency part, at least. Because he didn't even plan to live in his new residence. He sells off Bag End. He's like, I'm going to move back to, like, my mom's hometown. Yeah. And that way he can just leave the Shire quietly without, the people in Hobbiton knowing that he's clearly up to something more major than just a little move.
His friend Mary, who still seems to be a class below him, is out getting Buckland House ready. So he and his friends and lower class people who do stuff for him, Pippin and Sam, go with him, and they all walk from the Shire across to Buckland. And it gets kind of creepy because there's these mysterious people who are all dressed in black with black hoods. So, of course, you can't recognize them because it's fantasy, so hooded cowls are the ultimate disguise.
I like it.
And they're riding...
Can't go wrong with a hooded cowl.
Never. Wear a hooded cowl, nobody will ever recognize you. So they get a little freaked out about that, and they decide to take a shortcut through a marsh This is a bad idea. They get lost, but it's not too bad an idea. It will become progressively more of a bad idea throughout the book to take shortcuts. This first one is kind of okay. They run into Farmer Maggot. It's fine. They have some childhood reminiscences. They eat mushrooms and bacon. He takes them across a ferry, leaves the ferry on the far end, so it'll be hard for the Black Riders. And they're in Buckland. Yay! Gandalf's still not there. They pick up Merry, and they all leave the Shire. And it's quite a moment.
I like that Merry and Pippin and Sam all knew like the long-term plan of leaving the Shire. So Frodo was just planning to sneak away by himself. And it seems that his secrecy has worked, for the common rabble, but not necessarily for his besties, because they know that he's leaving because he did things like muttering under his breath, "I wonder if I shall ever see this sight again."
I think I should take up some portentous muttering.
I like it.
Just make sure other people hear me when I'm in the grocery store.
Yeah, the grocery store is the perfect place to do this.
I wonder if I shall ever see this brand again. All right, so he goes off with his besties. They insist on coming with him. They take some ponies. They leave Buckland through the one gap in the impenetrable hedge that obviously no one would ever be able to get through unless, I don't know, they had a giant pair of hedge clippers. And they're heading out for their next stop, which is Bree.
But you can't forget Tom Bombadil and his silly forest.
We will not forget Tom Bombadil and the silly forest, because the Black Riders are still being creepy. They're still being a little bit leery of the road, so they decide on shortcut number 2, where they get eaten by evil trees.
They experience some sort of immediate psychological effects of entering the forest, which I find a little charming about the book. They kind of they go into the old forest, which is, I guess, infamously dangerous and tricksy, which is fair. It is. They do get eaten by trees, but they just kind of walk in, and a strange fog comes over their minds, and they're not thinking clearly exactly. And I like that about the old forest.
It's a great
got a mind of its own.
It does. In fact, I kind of wanted to read some bits about the old forest.
Oh, please do.
Tom's words laid bare the hearts of trees and their thoughts, which were often dark and strange and filled with a hatred of things that go free upon the earth, gnawing, biting, breaking, hacking, burning, destroyers, and usurpers. This will not come up ever again. There will be no more evil trees. All the other trees we meet will be perfectly fine. All of them. I did want to mention, have you heard of or read anything by Algernon Blackwood?
I have not.
So
Tell
he
me
was
about that.
an early 1900s horror author, a big influence on H.P. Lovecraft. And a lot of the section on the Old Forest reminded me a lot of Algernon Blackwood's The Willows, specifically,
Okay.
which involves evil willow trees.
I'm intrigued.
I did some quick research. Turns out Tolkien, in the annotated Hobbit, told the author that the phrase crack of doom was inspired by Algernon Blackwood, but he couldn't remember which story. So he definitely did read some Blackwood. Also, I'm not the only one who's ever had this thought based on the 5 million blog posts I found about Algernon Blackwood and Tolkien. So I am not a beautiful and unique snowflake in having this thought. So Algernon Blackwood, probably a big influence on the silly forest.
It's kind of fun to have a thought and then find later that other people had the same thought. You can't always be sure that you didn't just read it and subconsciously remember it, but probably not. Lots of people have the same independent thought, and that you can still be a unique snowflake, just like all the other ones who thought it. Yes. I do like the trees were whispering to each other,
as they do.
No. I mean, apparently, once we got to your quote, they were nasty whisperings. But at least when I first read, the trees were whispering to each other. It might have been nice things until we found out otherwise.
It could have been just sassy high school gossip. We don't know.
Yes. So, yeah, someone gets eaten by one of these evil trees.
And they're thinking about setting the forest on fire, but
that's exactly what the trees don't want them to do, and is what is making the trees see them as enemies.
Yes, it's a vicious cycle.
And I think it was sometime before the trees started getting munchy that one of the hobbits just kind of like cried out into the forest for like some random mercy.
Yeah.
Just felt like that would be a good thing to do, which I think maybe like summoned Tom Bombadil, perhaps?
Possibly. I mean, should we start yelling out randomly for mercy when we're, again, in the grocery store?
Might as well. Yeah, right. Again, the grocery store would be the most appropriate time to do this. Oh, ye who might hear, have mercy on me as I journey through this place.
Anyway, they get rescued from the evil trees by Tom Bombadil, he is the eldest, the first. He's just this old, mysterious creature who sings songs and has questionable fashion sense.
Yeah, his outfit didn't sound great.
His boots are yellow.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't wear yellow boots.
It just
like that.
sounds like a 3-year-old in rain boots.
Oh, no, it does. It does.
And they go to Tom Bombadil's house and meet his wife Goldberry, and they just hang out with Tom Bombadil for a while.
Yeah, I like this part of the story. Tom Bombadil is just, I feel like he has somewhat of a similar mindset to the elves, but he's not an elf, right? He's the first. He's kind of been there since the forest was. But he's just a merry fellow. And I approve of his way of life, just like frolicking around the forest and being happy and singing songs.
Yeah, it's not the worst.
Hosting well-meaning travelers.
And we're keeping them from getting eaten by trees.
Right. I mean, I'm chill with Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, I'm good with Tom Bombadil.
He's perhaps the most interesting thing about him is that the ring doesn't seem to affect him in any way. So
right.
Frodo lets him hold it, and he puts it on, but doesn't disappear.
Right.
And then Frodo gets the ring back, and he's kind of like, oh no, what if, he has switcherooed the ring, and I don't have my ring. I better make sure it's the magic ring. Whoop. And then Frodo disappears, but Tom Bombadil can still see him. So whatever it is that he is, he's somehow outside of the normal realm.
He is, which they actually bring up because if, like me, reader, you might be considering, why don't we just give the ring to Tom Bombadil and forget the quest? This is brought up, and they basically yeah, Tom probably wouldn't take it, and then all of the rest of us would fall to the shadow, and then Tom Bombadil would fall. So at least we recognize that would be a plot hole if we didn't address it.
I feel like maybe they could put it on someone expendable and then have the tree eat them, and then Tom could just not save that person from the tree, and then the ring could just,
be in the tree.
There. Yeah.
But then would we make a super-powered evil tree?
Oh, no. You might be right. Sounds like the trees weren't very nice to begin with, so
and then
good point. We can't do that.
Yeah, that would be a problem.
Or he might just, he seems unconcerned with it as well, so maybe giving it to him would be a bad idea, because he might just, flippantly flick it off somewhere to be found by whoever.
Or just eaten by a tree.
Right. And then we get evil trees, which we've established.
No good. It's not the move.
No.
They finally leave Tom Bombadil's house, and they get directions on how to safely pass through the Barrow Downs. Now, at this point in my life, it has started to bother me that downs are a place you go up to. So I actually looked this up. And it turns out that the Old English word down means a mountain or a hill, and that has sort of persisted in the term downs.
Okay.
So
Watership... That is a fascinating tidbit.
Right? So Watership Down, the Barrow Downs, that's why you go up to the downs.
Oh, I like that.
And now we know. The power of dictionaries.
And if you go up to the downs... Again, a mysterious fog comes over your mind, and you just feel like taking a nap.
To be fair, mysterious fog, whatever. They sit down in the sun to have a picnic. like,
Oh, yeah, you know what? Maybe we don't need any sort of magical intervention to create that nap.
I feel like the mysterious fog is an excuse for doing what they were warned precisely not to,
Right.
which is take a nap and stop in the Barrow Downs. It's like, so they're supposed to head through the Barrow Downs as quickly as possible. Obviously, they don't. So they get captured by Barrow Wights. All of the hobbits end up being unconscious except for Frodo, because Frodo's all special and has the special magic evil ring. So he manages to cry out for Tom Bombadil to come back and rescue them again.
Oh, yeah, because Tom Bombadil gave them sort of a, hey, here's this special silly song to sing if you need me.
Tom Bombadil shows up and vanquishes the Barrow Wights through the power of, I don't know, silly songs.
I feel like the Barrow Wights wouldn't like silly songs. They'd just be like, so that's how.
Very likely. But it's a chance for them to pick up daggers out of the Barrow Downs, which is cool.
Also like the little tidbit that the Wights are the dead from an ancient battle with the Witch King of Angmar, who is one of the mysterious Black Riders. So
think of a worse afterlife than hanging out as a Barrow Wight and getting defeated by Tom Bombadil singing silly songs. Like, that's just embarrassing.
it is. You're right.
It's like, I fell against the Witch King of Angmar, and now I'm falling against this guy with yellow boots.
Right. The toddler stomping up and singing a silly song. They were probably just like, oh, I'm way too exhausted for this shit. Like, let's just go back to sleep in our tombs.
Yeah, back to the eternal rest. We just can't handle this anymore. They escape the Barrow Downs. They even get their ponies restored to them, which is nice. And they head on to Bree, which is a big people town.
Yep, a big people and small people town.
And they feel like a lot of it is out of scale with them, which I heavily relate to as someone who's very short. I sometimes, when I'm at other people's houses and I ask where stuff is, and it turns out to be at the top shelf or on the top of the cupboard, so I can't reach it, and it's very embarrassing.
That's very adorable. I, however, am a very tall elven lady.
You are, and I bet you never have to ask somebody to reach stuff for you off the shelf. Very jealous right now.
I would totally put something on a high shelf at my house and then tell you to get it just to fuck with you.
So imagine if you're the ultimate evil. Would you be putting your magic ring up there where I couldn't reach it? Just be like, yeah, the magic ring's up there. You can totally defeat me if you can just get to it. They're at Bree. They go to the Inn of the Prancing Pony. They meet the comically rotund innkeeper. I know this is where the trope comes from, but I really feel like I'm playing D&D sometimes when I read this. And they decide they're going to have a nice evening playing in the common room of the inn, except for Mary, who goes for a walk.
And they're supposed to be highly secretive, but it seems like maybe partying a little bit would just be a nice treat.
They seem to be getting a little... Sam starts telling comic stories that start getting into their situations, so Frodo decides to distract from the situation by doing a merry table dance.
Which happens to be the cow jumped over the moon, hey diddle diddle.
Of course. But he loses his balance and falls off the table, which in a comical series of events causes the ring to sneakily slip onto his fingers. So he vanishes and there's lots of confusion and suspicion.
Speaking of Frodo, whoopsie, putting the ring on, there's, even from the very beginning of the story, before we lose Bilbo, there is this constant unspoken pressure to use the ring and an impact on the person who possesses it. Mm-hmm. So even things like Gandalf thinks it's odd that Bilbo is telling him some irrelevant lies, and he's thinking, this is not like Bilbo. He's, very honest and upfront, and it's just and that's one of the things that tips Gandalf off, that the ring is maybe more evil than he thought at first. So Frodo has been feeling this this just desire to put on the ring. And I think even before he puts it on, he's kind of thinking, oh, I would love to just not be at this party, which I can relate to. There's times that I would love to have a disappear ring. I'm at a party and I'm just like, I'm really done with this party. Let me just whoop.
It'd be so convenient.
Yes.
We don't want to take over the world. We just want to leave parties.
That's right.
But then we would have to drive cars to get away from the party.
That's true.
Which, I mean,
I could maybe stow away with someone who's going the right direction while invisible.
But then you'd have to go back for your car later.
My plan is falling apart.
I'm sorry. So Ring tries to get people to put it on. Like, even you are falling under its spell. You're immediately thinking of reasons why you'd want to put it on.
Right, exactly.
Get out of parties.
It's a noble purpose, of course, leaving parties.
Especially depending on the party. Yeah, it can be. Some parties, just not okay.
It's a step up from the French goodbye, where you just don't say goodbye. You know, we have the Hobbit goodbye.
You just vanish.
You vanish in front of everyone.
What's the worst party you've been to where you wanted to vanish?
Worst party I've been to? Probably an awkward wedding where, like, everybody there was mad at each other.
Ugh.
And where I overheard the parents of the groom berating him immediately before the wedding because they were trying to, like, control everything. I definitely wanted to whoop.
Okay, where were we?
Let's see. They have met Strider.
Mysterious helpful stranger number 1, Strider. So Strider he's introduced to them as the landlord as this, like, kind of sketchy ranger dude. He gives them a good stiff lecture on their party behavior.
He says that they did not deserve that treat. Should not have had a little partying just as a treat.
They should not. They're not sure whether to trust him. Fortunately, the innkeeper conveniently remembers at that moment he's got a letter from Gandalf saying to go ahead and leave immediately and also trust this dude Strider.
And also in the letter, Gandalf is going to be very angry with the innkeeper if he doesn't give it to Frodo right away, which in fact he did not give it to Frodo right away.
There's no time to be angry because Mary shows up and is like, by the way, guys, these mysterious Black Riders, they're in town. We should probably peace. But everybody's aware of them, like they're a bunch of small-town inquisitive types, so the village is going to turn out to watch them off, so they can't immediately head off cross-country. So they leave as soon as possible. Strider is going to lead them on yet another shortcut. Shortcut number 3, if you're keeping up, off the road, to try to get off the road and away from the path of the Black Riders, though as they leave, he also dramatically shows Frodo his broken sword because he's kind of a drama king and will do a lot of poses throughout this.
I'm into that. I like the drama king thing. That's pretty good. It was maybe some kind of proof that he was him because there was a poem in Gandalf's letter about the sword that was broken. Which, you know, no dude could just have a random broken sword.
It's not like swords ever break, no.
They don't.
So they go off on shortcut number 3, and they decide to climb to the top of a very tall hill to look around them to see the Black Riders. Now, if you've read it as much fantasy as I have, you immediately know why this is a bad idea. Because if you're up on a high hill and can see everyone can also see you. So this, as one expects, lead them to have a little altercation, a little fracas with the Black Riders. Frodo gets stabbed. It hurts.
Conveniently not lethally.
And conveniently the knife melts and doesn't seem to, like, leave anything, or does it? They continue across country fleeing from the Black Riders. Frodo's wound gets worse and worse. They're trying to cross the Great River to get into Rivendell. They're not sure they'll make it. But, lo, mysterious helpful dude number 2, riding a white horse, as is thematically appropriate, Glorfindel, the elf dude, shows up. He's coming from Rivendell to see what's going on, if he can help, and yes, he can. So he gets them across the river dramatically in the nick of time. The river dramatically comes alive with white crested horses of water that crush the Black Riders.
No, they don't like those waves. Not into that.
And then they're in Rivendell, and Frodo faints dramatically. Once he sees everyone get swept into safety.
I like all these drama king moments.
There are.
They're pretty good.
Everyone is so drama in this. So he wakes up in the last homely house, which we remember from The Hobbit as being a fun place to hang out. He's been unconscious. He's been unconscious for a while. He gets reunited with Bilbo, who's also in Rivendell. Gandalf's in Rivendell. Bunch of people.
Finally, Gandalf.
Yay! Bunch of people are in Rivendell, and we're going to have a giant meeting, and we're going to talk about everything. Now, we both work in corporate jobs. How do you feel about a giant meeting?
It could have been an email.
Could have been an email.
Could they have had like a what to do with the ring? Everybody.
Thread?
There could, yeah, exactly. There could be a and my axe send.
I think they could have just had an axe emoji, personally. Fortunately, Bilbo attends this meeting and keeps interrupting to demand they take food breaks because Bilbo is a hero. Everyone needs a Bilbo in their long corporate meetings.
I agree.
Fortunately, I work fully remote now, so I am much more in control of my own snacks situation.
That could be one of those situations where you'd want to use the ring to get out of the corporate meeting. If you weren't working from home, if you had to actually be there, that'd be one of those times. I think that would be even more tempting than leaving the awkward wedding.
Especially at the end of a meeting when you're hungry and tired and people just keep asking questions.
I know, and they're just talking about things that the meeting wasn't even called for, and then not everyone who's sitting there in the meeting needs to hear about the side topic. Boop.
How easily are we seduced by the power of the ring here?
Very.
I blame corporations and corporate culture. Anyway, at this long meeting that really could have been an email, they all compare notes. They figure out where the ring came from, the creepy story of Gollum. They find out that Gandalf was late because dude that they all thought was good and wise and on their side turned traitor and held him captive for a while. Fortunately, giant eagles, it's a thing. He escapes, whatever. We also meet some important people. We've got Boromir, who is there to disagree with everybody. That's seriously his purpose in the novel, as far as I can tell. He's also a little bit of a drama king, just not as much as Strider. He's here from Gondor to call for aid because they need some help. And then we also have Gimli, son of Glóin from The Hobbit. Gimli's personality here is dwarf.
And he has an axe.
He does have an axe.
It's a real one and not just an emoji.
We also have Legolas, who is there to be an elf. He has a bow.
Yep. And it's also not an emoji.
But he could have definitely just sent an emoji.
He could have. The point would have gotten across.
After a long debate about what to do with the ring, options are to either take it to Gondor and try to use it to help. That's what Boromir wants to do. Or take it to Mordor and destroy it in the fires of where it was forged. And then having decided that and taken some more food breaks, they then have to figure out who's going. And obviously there has to be 9 people going because there's 9 Black Riders, so there have to be 9 walkers for absolutely no reason other than parallelism. I really do like this story, by the way. There's just a lot of silly moments.
That is one of the charms. It's so silly.
It is. So they sillily decide that they have to have 9 walkers, but they can take a pony for their baggage. I don't know why they can't take horses. They'd lose the horses, but whatever. And the 9 are going to be Gandalf, obviously, Strider, because it's fun, and he's got like some destiny. He doesn't have a broken sword anymore. They fix it while he's off doing elf song and chill with Elrond's friend, the Lady Arwen. Gandalf, Strider, Boromir, who is wanting to go back to Gondor and fight the Shadow at Minas Tirith. Then we have representatives of the Elven and Dwarven kind for reasons of diversity. The way they phrase it really makes them sound like diversity hires. It's kind of insulting.
Oh, poor Gimli.
And then we have the 4 hobbits.
I think the hobbits are overrepresented.
So we've got 3 humans, 4 hobbits, and 2 other.
Yeah, I guess Gandalf counts as human. I mean, he's like a demigod kind of, but appears human enough.
Yeah,
It'll do.
we'll go with him.
Yeah.
They also decide that they don't need to start out right away. They need to send out scouts to figure out what happened to the Black Riders. I'm not totally clear on what difference this would make. I mean, forewarned, but maybe, but also they take months hanging out in Rivendell, and they don't leave till November.
I mean, they're just using the Black Riders as an excuse for procrastination. They're just kind of like, maybe somebody will think of a better plan if we just hang out like one more week.
And Strider's got a lot of elf song and chill to do with the Lady Arwen. So much elf song and chill.
Yes.
But November, they finally decide they haven't heard of the Black Riders. It's safe to head across the Misty Mountains. So they all set out, and Boromir dramatically blows his horn as they leave, which immediately Gandalf calls him on.
He has been waiting to blow that horn for a while, okay?
It was the dramatic parting. And we are going to head out across the Misty Mountains in November. And this is as bad a reason as you think, because we are apparently in your standard North Hemispheric current Earth climate, so November is not a good time to be crossing mountains.
Might be a little snow.
There might be a lot of snow.
There definitely is a lot of snow.
They try to go hiking across the mountains. That doesn't work too well because of weather. Because, again, they took months hanging out in Rivendell.
Yeah, they could have been getting over that mountain like all summer, but no, they were procrastinating.
So because we have learned nothing, we decide to take a shortcut.
Well, there was kind of like the marshes were not a great shortcut, but Tom Bombadil's Silly Forest, I'm going to count that one as a good shortcut.
They got eaten by a tree.
Yes,
they got
But they got saved by a very merry fellow.
Okay, fine. Weathertop was not a good shortcut.
We'll call that one a half good, half bad. So we've got 0.5 good shortcuts and 2.5 bad shortcuts.
So third time's the charm or something. They decide to take a shortcut through the mines of Moria.
Ooh.
Boromir complains vociferously about this, as he does about every decision they make. And I tend to agree with him on this. Like, clearly there is absolutely no hurry on this quest. We could go back to Rivendell and chill out for a couple of months.
Let's just go wait out the winter in Rivendell a little more.
Or
elf
even,
song and chill.
Yeah, or even a couple of weeks to see if we can get a time between storms. I just don't see this as being urgent enough to justify going through the mines of Moria. We're not sure exactly what's going to happen in Moria, but there is foreshadowing. So much foreshadowing.
Some of the clever strangers think it's a bad idea.
Very bad idea.
But Gimli very much wants to go there because it's a dwarf place.
It is a dwarf place, but some dwarves have mysteriously disappeared and not been heard from since there, so he wants to find out what happened to them. So they go to the mines of Moria. They get to the entrance. They lose their pony.
There's a big monster outside.
Yes. It's in the lake, though, so we never get a good look at it. It seems kind of tentacly. Very Lovecraftian. Then they have to solve a silly riddle to get through the door.
Just want to thank you for being such a good melon.
Yes, they get into Moria with silly wordplay. Because reasons. And they're worried about a doom that's been in Moria because the dwarves have been delving too greedily and too deep to get to Mithril, which is beloved of the elves. And excuse me? You're blaming the dwarves for delving too greedily and too deep when they've got an entire kingdom of elves who are just clamoring for this stuff and paying top dollar for this stuff. This is like saying that rhinoceri are going extinct because of poachers and ignoring the people who pay the poachers. It's not, people are not poaching rhinos because it's fun. Like, have you met a rhino?
The elves love to blame everyone else and just pat themselves on the back because they're the wisest and fairest, because they say so.
They are paying other people to create ecological and cosmic horror disasters with their minds, and then blaming the dwarves when they get black lung and balrogs.
Also, if you just, like, have dwarves they're going to dig because that's what they do.
Mm-hmm.
That's their whole lifestyle. They didn't know what was down there. Are we supposed to think that there's random evil, like, under the ground everywhere?
I mean,
How
I
are we supposed to
personally,
know?
yes, but...
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. But how do you know? How do you know when to stop? What is too deep and too greedy?
Especially when you're doing it so that these greedy elves can get their mithril. Who are the elves to call dwarves greedy? Come on. Okay.
As a wise and beautiful elf, I must disagree. The dwarves did the physical digging, therefore I will fault them, because I am the wisest of all creatures.
Whatever. I'm just going to eat elf bread and complain about elves. Continuing. So they go through the mountains of Moria, or the mines of Moria. So it's all these mines and tunnels that are underneath the misty mountains. It's quite creepy. It's dark. Gandalf seems to be getting lost and ends up dramatically throwing himself down to take a smoke break at one point.
Another good drama king moment.
What is with the drama? Like, I think they all just need to get into drag and just get it out of their system. So much drama. Anyway, they finally appear to be going the right way and going through to the other side. Things are still creepy. There seem to be creepy footprints following them. But we're not even thinking about them. We're not going to deal with it. We're just going to go on. And now, dramatically, right before they manage to find the exit, they find a giant tomb, which they stop to read for a long time because apparently none of us have seen horror movies in this party.
We have to just really instill that nothing is urgent and that we should absolutely take our time for everything.
This is true. They are going to stop and read stuff, and it's a really Lovecraftian narrative that they find about... because it ends with, there's unspeakable horror coming closer. We cannot get out.
We cannot get out.
And then, right on cue, they start hearing drums. And one of them actually says, we can't get out. And that's what we call a dramatic irony.
I do like ominous drums, though.
The ominous drums are great.
I approve of ominous drums making an appearance.
And I'm not sure who's playing the drums because they run into an army of orcs. And are orcs known for their drumming?
I guess so.
I mean,
apparently.
Maybe
the dwarves had drums and the orcs had, just happened to find them right in that moment and was like, what is this?
And then they just started doing drum circles, do you think
so.
in the Mines of Moria?
Yeah, I mean, they've been hanging out there for a while. It's been like at least half a generation or something since the dwarves really lived there, right?
Yeah, so drum circles.
So what else are the orcs going to do? They have no enemies there to go after.
Yeah.
Got to pass the time somehow.
Embroidery and drumming. Good life, actually. So they start running. They also encounter this absolutely terrifying monster, which is Durin's Bane. It's a Balrog. We never get a totally clear idea of what a Balrog is, where it comes from. It's this giant thing with wings that was
at least not in this book.
True, at least not in this book. It appears to come out of the dark earth, and somehow it's cool with the orcs.
And it was there somehow. It was just hanging out down there.
Yeah.
Apparently entombed in the mountain.
Yeah, what does it do? What does it want?
How did it get there? Unclear.
Why is it cool with the orcs? I mean, does it enjoy drumming? I have many questions.
Some sort of just like evil magnetism.
For whatever reason, there's this great and terrible evil, which is kind of okay with the other terrible evil. Like, I'm not sure why orcs and Balrogs would get along, because, I mean, if I run into you on the street and you're like, hey, I'm evil, and I'm like, cool, I'm evil too. Like, I feel like the next step is not...
You're evil.
Let's go drinking. What are we going to talk about? Yeah, I mean, just being evil together doesn't make you besties. But in this case, it seems to.
Being evil is not a whole personality, okay?
It's really not. So... they come to a bridge that they have to cross. Gandalf makes a dramatic last stand on the bridge. I'm sure there will be many poems and songs about this. The rest of them run off and leave him, like, dramatically.
It will be a source of many musical interludes.
It's very tragic. But then they get out the other side and they stumble out into Dimrell Dale, and it's not full of a creepy lake monster, and they survived the mines of Moria, and they're one down. Yay. Yay?
Sort of.
The battle's done and they sort of won.
And we're going to definitely put that on the bad shortcuts list.
That was a very bad shortcut.
Yeah, nothing good happened there.
If somebody dies, it's a bad shortcut.
Yeah, automatically counted on the bad list.
So that was a bad shortcut, but they are now at Lothlorien. So they enter a forest, and it's full of trees that are not evil, and it's full of prejudiced elves. But
yep, they're like, everyone can come through except the dwarf. We're going to have to blindfold him because he can't see our elf secrets.
And then Aragorn's like, no, everyone must be blindfolded together because we're all solidarity. And then somehow we end up all deciding that elves and dwarves are cool together. It's very easy to solve all of this.
Oh, see, that's part of Galadriel's magic, because she has some mind reading powers and some projection powers. So she kind of just thinks that Gimli seems like a cool guy. So all of their customs go out the window.
Yep, she solves racism. Good job.
Yep.
So they end up in Lothlorien, hanging out with a new group of elves. And before we go any further, this seems like a good time for a musical interlude because...
As is the Elven way.
I feel so elven now.
So Galadriel has been around a really long-ass time. So she came from the ancient Elfland, which is outside of Middle-earth, but now she's been in Middle-earth for also a long-ass time, and was alive when the magical rings were created, and has been a long time enemy of the darkness. And a lot of the ancient elves have been leaving Middle-earth for a while, so she's kind of the queen of the biggest remaining old elf kingdom left in Middle-earth, and she's also the bearer of one of the other magic rings. So the Dark Lord made the 9 rings for the men, and the 7 rings for the dwarves, and the 3 rings for the elves, and Galadriel has one of those. So she's immensely powerful on her own, and she also has a little magic amplifier ring, which this is Ninya.
Beautiful.
Galadriel's ring. This one is a replica from the movies, the way it looks in them. But I like them. In the books, her ring is kind of described as looking like a star. It's kind of star-shaped.
And interestingly, not everybody can see it.
Right. So that's an interesting part where Frodo can see it, because he has a couple of times dipped his toe into the main ring of power. You know, not literally, unfortunately, because it would have made a better toe ring. So he's kind of seen the ring magic firsthand, so he's able to see the ring. But then Sam is just like, it looked like the image of a star on your finger or something like that. So
No, what Galadriel's going to do with all this power and knowledge she has, she's going to judge people.
yeah, she's going to judge people, and she's going to facilitate some totally optional divination.
Yes.
So she does some water divination, and she tells Sam and Frodo, who are the only ones invited to this divination party, that they can choose whether they'd like to look into Galadriel's mirror or not. So Galadriel's mirror is a water basin of some kind. So she pours her water in, and then she puts her elf magic in by blowing over the water. So that turned it from ordinary water into, elf holy water of some kind. So once she's blown some ripples into the water, she offers for the two hobbits to look in, and one of them says, "Should I?" And she says, "I will say nothing. You're invited to, but it's your choice. You don't know, you're not sure what you will see, and you might see things that are helpful, or you might see things that are misleading, or you might see things that are already real, or even just possible paths that you may want to avoid, but you're definitely not going to know how to avoid." So it's kind of just like a weird mixed bag, and the hobbits are curious, so they do want to look in and see what's going to happen.
I feel like I would not want to look into this because I feel like it would give me unnecessary anxiety without being helpful.
That's probably wise. I'm far too curious to not look in. Even if I just know that it's going to be bad, I would be like, well, I can't just not look.
But you can't. That is an option. Anyway, they look.
But then would life be worth living?
Yes.
I mean, fair enough, but I would still look.
There's still cake.
There's still cake. That's right. You know what? What if you looked and you saw a world where there was no cake? That would be really depressing.
It would.
So I definitely like Galadriel's spooky water mirror magic.
It's really cool.
Yeah. Also, then Sam just kind of sees his homeland, but shittier.
Mm-hmm. Something bad's happened in the Shire.
So, like, it might be happening now, or it might never happen, or if he goes home now, maybe it won't happen, or if he doesn't go home now, maybe it won't happen.
There's no way to know.
But yes, Galadriel has nothing helpful to say about how to avoid that fate.
Absolutely nothing.
Just that it's a potential, right?
She is more helpful when it comes to giving gifts.
That's true. That's right.
Sometimes she doubles up on the gifts, and she gives three of the hobbits identical cloaks. But she gives Frodo a magic phial that gives out light. And I want to mention at this point that this was read to me as a bedtime story, and I did not realize that phial was the same as a vial.
Yeah.
Just with the different spelling. So when I just heard file said, I was thinking file like a thing you file stuff, maybe like a nail file. And so it became sort of like a weird nail file kind of flashlight in my 10-year-old brain.
As I was trying to think of another file, I was like picturing a filing cabinet. So I think I like the nail file flashlight a lot better than my alternative file.
It's more portable, certainly.
Yeah, that would not be much use if you have to just like lift up a giant filing cabinet and like the drawer slides open and it's just like a blinding light coming out.
Although maybe it would help with Elrond's giant corporate meetings if there was the file cabinet of Galadriel.
When you're ready to end the meeting, you open the blinding filing cabinet.
And then everybody leaves. It's great.
That's a good alternative. See, like, we're tempted to use the ring to get out of the meeting, but we can just use the file of light instead.
And we're not going to become evil.
That's right. That's right.
Would it help bad weddings?
I don't know. I feel like they would just think it was some sort of, like, weird decoration, or like, oh, are they going to do like the Unity file or something?
You have to draw the file and the drawer cabinet open together.
They'll have a ceremony where they put the papers from their files into one file and then back in the cabinet of light.
Here's my bank account statements from the last 7 years that I'm not sure whether I should shred or not. So they're just going to be here forever.
Okay, so we're going to go with the file will help in meetings and it's not going to help at weddings.
All right. So the ring is still the better choice.
Right. Oh, no. Maybe the ring is twisting my mind so that I have to just come up with a reason why we can't use the file at the wedding. So that I'm like, well, I have to use the ring to get out of here. So the ring wants to be necessary.
There's no way to know. They finally leave Lothlorien after like a month.
Again, not very urgent at all.
No urgency. This time they take some magic elven boats down the big river. And I believe this is the same river that they float down in barrels in The Hobbit for a while.
Oh, yeah, good point.
So there's a lot of floating on this river. Some weirder than others. So they all get in boats. And they start noticing there's a weird log with eyes that seems to be following them. And they finally bring this up to Strider. He's like, oh, yeah, that's been following us for a while. Remember those creepy footprints in Moria? So, yeah, it's Gollum.
It's been Gollum all this time.
It's like,
It's been hanging around.
It's like, were you going to mention this at any point? This feels like pertinent information. Whatever. Anyway, so they're being followed around by Gollum. This will not be important yet. Things are getting tense because they're coming to a decision point. Do they go to Mordor or do they go to Gondor and fight the shadow there? Boromir has announced that he's going to Gondor no matter what. Fair enough.
He's definitely Team Gondor.
And he really wants Aragorn to come with him. Aragorn is kind of sworn to go rescue Gondor because of ancient prophecy. And in fact, when they pass under like these old like statues that are in the river representing old kings, Aragorn has to stand up between them and pose for a while.
Oh, an excellent drama king moment. I love it.
Such a drama king. I feel like Boromir fights with him because he's just not as good of a drama king.
True. That's why Boromir has to become a bit of a stinker in a minute. He's got to have his moment.
Yep, which is coming right now. So they ask Frodo to make a decision about where he's going because Frodo is the ring bearer, and you can't just take rings from people by force because then you become like Gollum, who murdered his brother for the ring. And
they like have to let Frodo make the decision because all of them are afraid to take possession of the ring in any way because they know that they'll become evil. So there's like, well, we need to just do whatever this little guy says who has never been out in the world because he couldn't possibly have an ulterior motive.
Not at all. And Frodo decides he wants to go think about it by himself for a while because he has not been considering this apparently up till this moment. Like, this is really like the equivalent of not thinking about what to do on your turn in D&D. So he goes off to read the player's handbook, I guess. And Boromir comes after him and basically tries to take the ring from him by force because he wants to go save Gondor with it because, I mean, that's going to work out totally fine.
He thinks it would be a waste to destroy the ring. So he's not even concerned about becoming corrupted. He's just straightforward. He'll take the ring. He'll use it as he sees fit.
Arguably, he's already corrupted. But
True.
Frodo does a boop with the ring and runs off. And Boromir just starts running around panicking instead of just becoming very quiet and listening, which would seem like the better response to this. You know somebody in your party can become invisible and you haven't put any thought about what to do to locate them. But whatever. I guess his mind is just clouded by the corruption of the ring. Anyway.
I mean, this is the same guy who is just like...
Okay, being quiet is not his strength. Yeah. Noted.
Yeah.
Frodo decides he's going to go sneak off by himself, not endanger anyone, blah, blah, selfless hero, whatever. So he goes off to the boats and is trying to tug one around. Everybody else has noticed that he's missing. They start panicking. Boromir's like, well, I might have startled him a little bit, and he may have put the ring on, and nobody wants to ask questions right then, even though there's clearly some questions to be asked. So everybody's still just sort of running around looking for him. Sam uses his brains and goes, well, I know Frodo. What's he likely to do? Oh, he's probably going to sneak off without any of us. So he goes and jumps in the boat with Frodo, and off they go to Mordor. And that
seems like a good plan.
That brings us to the end of book 1. How are you feeling?
Sounds like it wrapped up and there couldn't possibly be a sequel.
Not at all. Normally, at the end of discussing books, I like to rate them on my unitless sugar scale, but I actually want to wait until we've read all 3 books.
Okay.
Actually, let me ask you: do you want to do that now?
Tell me about the rating scale.
So we have sexiness,
Oh, okay.
uniqueness, gender, how much it is an X for the frozen sea inside us, and readability. So actually,
Okay.
let's read it and then see
let's do
how it changes throughout.
We could do one by one with the books and
Yeah.
then overall.
Yeah, so sexiness.
I mean, I'm definitely biased, but the elves are incredibly sexy. I mean, and it's not just the movies that make them that way. They've got elf song and chill. I mean, they're just supposed to be impossibly beautiful, and they stay that way forever. I'm gonna go like maximum sexy.
They are pretty sexy. And then Aragorn's also sexy. He stands and poses beautifully. Like, he's the
Yeah.
type of person to stand on a promontory with the wind blowing his hair back.
You know, I feel like he has some sex appeal to a lot of people, but the way he's first described as like this kind of dirty, grimy wanderer, it just kind of ruined it for me right off the bat.
Well, so I like a man who grimes up pretty good. Like, you know Henry
Yeah.
Cavill in The Witcher?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Okay. So I'll give the elves like top sexiness and Aragorn, moderate to high sexiness.
There's some really sexy people in this book. There's not any actual romance that happens on screen, though. It's pretty heavily implied that Arwen and Aragorn are doing some elf song and chill.
Yep.
They're doing it.
I'm gonna go with hobbits have a very low sexy factor.
Yeah,
They're just really cute and silly.
they are.
So 0 sexy.
That's fair. How do I spell sugar? Uniqueness. This, I had some. I'm going to go with yes and no on this because it is heavily based on a whole lot of different things. It is also the basis for a whole lot of different things. So it's like,
Right.
it's almost like a convergence from which everything spreads out again.
Yeah. Yeah, not terribly unique. I mean, I wouldn't say that every fantasy book is that charming, particularly, because, again, linguist.
Yeah.
But I would say that some of, like, the individual clever lines, like I know less than half of you. Less than half as well as I'd like, and I like less than half of you, half as well as you deserve. There's just a lot of goofy little things like that, so I think that's unique, but the story and all of the tropes and stuff, not so much.
Right. It is very much taking a bunch of tropes and putting them together into a giant trope,
Yeah.
which I'm not too mad about. Like, it's fun. But, like, same way I'm not mad about how much of The Hobbit is cribbed straight out of Beowulf.
I think that a lot of the secret to happiness in life is enjoying repetition, because that's just going to always be part of life, and having tiny variations on a common thing and not feeling disappointed by that.
agree.
Just makes for a more merry time.
And it is a very merrier world here.
Yes.
A very merry world, rather. So, gender. This does not pass the Bechdel test.
Absolutely not.
There are, I believe I was counting, female characters. Lobelia Sackville Baggins, who is a queen.
See, we've got Farmer Maggot's wife.
Who doesn't even have a name.
Nope.
We have Goldberry, who does all the washing for Tom Bombadil.
Oh, yeah, I know. I do remember the part about, like, oh, it's Goldberry's washing day. It's just, I don't know. Like, to be fair, chilling in a merry forest and probably singing some songs while you do the washing. Not a bad life. But
Still.
yeah, she doesn't have another lady friend to talk to.
Also, have you ever done washing not with a washing machine?
Oh, the old scrub way. I have not. Nor do I ever plan to.
It's the worst. I never want to do it ever again in my life. We also have Arwen, who is basically there to be
And
hot
she,
for Strider.
I think maybe does she even have like a first person, or not a first person? Does she have a line even spoken in the book? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I think she's just referred to.
Yeah, she's just there to be super hot and presumably make
Yeah.
hot sex with Aragorn all the time.
I have just always found Galadriel so inspiring that even though she doesn't in fact talk to another woman, she's so amazing that I'm not mad.
That's fair. She is cool. She She doesn't do much. She does a lot of talking. She does a lot of judging. She's pretty inspiring, though. She solves
is.
racism.
That's right. She solves racism by being like, you know what, this dwarf seems like a cool guy.
That is pretty awesome. So that's our 5 female characters. Did I miss any?
I don't think so.
Okay. So that's gender. So, axiness. Franz Kafka says that a book should be an axe for the frozen sea inside us.
I like that.
It's a lovely quote.
It is.
It can mean a lot of different things to different people. How much would you say this is an axe for the frozen sea inside you?
A lot, because I've spent a lot of my life thinking about if I was Galadriel, would I take the ring when Frodo offers it? So that has been a huge axe to the frozen sea inside me.
I love that as a moral compass.
Yeah.
Although, why does everybody have moral compasses and not like moral astrolabes?
Do you have a moral astrolabe?
I don't have any astrolabe, moral or otherwise. And I have just now realized how much of a gaping hole this is in my life. I at least need an immoral astrolabe.
So how much did this book axe open the frozen sea inside you?
Not nearly as much. So I've always liked The Hobbit better.
Yeah.
I find Bilbo very inspiring and a thoroughly likable hero.
He is. He's charming.
Even in this book, I feel like he's a hero that I super relate to. He interrupts a long-ass meeting to demand snacks.
That's right, the real hero.
What a big damn hero.
He really does have a pretty heroic moment if we go back towards the beginning of the book, because I think he's the only character to ever willingly relinquish the ring. No one else ever does. Well, I mean, Frodo tries to several times, unsuccessfully.
Right.
But Bilbo, even though he doesn't know that it's corrupting him or that it's tied to the great evil or any of that, he leaves the ring to Frodo. And Gandalf kind of counsels him to do so, but in the end, it's just his free choice. And he physically takes it out of his pocket and leaves it to Frodo. So that's pretty heroic.
I also feel like I am going on a journey of life sort of with Bilbo because, you know, he starts off going, he doesn't want to go on an adventure. Adventures make one late for dinner. When I was a child, hearing this as a bedtime story, I didn't understand that. I was all like, yay, adventure. Why would you want to go back for dinner? You would want to go on an adventure. At this stage in my life, I'm very much, adventures make one late for dinner. But then he actually moves on and he's like, I'm ready to adventure again. So I feel like,
Yeah.
you know, you're never too old to go on an adventure.
At the time when you were a kid and you were thinking, why would anyone not want to go on an adventure? Had you ever been camping?
I don't think so. And I actually hate camping, so that's...
See, that's the part that makes the adventure just terrible. And in so many stories, when people are out adventuring and they just have to sleep in the cold and the rain, that's what puts me off of adventuring.
Yeah.
Which again is why I like Galadriel, because she kind of just chills in her forest kingdom.
She is definitely glamping.
Yes, absolutely.
She is glamping in the fanciest treehouse ever.
Glamp Galadriel.
Finally, we have readability. This is actually not the fastest read for me. They do a bunch of things, but they keep stopping to sing songs, and
There's a lot of like giant 2-page descriptions of like what all the flora and fauna around are doing.
And I should add, sometimes I'm good with that. Like, I really like H.P. Lovecraft, whose prose is just so Lovecraftian. Oh my God. Like, with sentences like that, who needs paragraphs?
Yeah.
I also like Edgar Allan Poe, so sometimes I'm okay with long descriptions, and I think why it's not working for me here is that Tolkien's descriptions are just not overwrought enough. Like, he spends 2 pages describing, like, a tree really hard, but it's not like the most horrific tree you've ever seen in your life, and you can't describe it, and it might make you faint.
Okay, so I would never describe these books as page turners. not the first time I read them, not the second time. But I would say rereading for this podcast, I have like savored every little detail much more, but I still would put it low on readability because there are some books that you just really don't want to put down, and this one you want to put down frequently.
Yes.
Yeah.
After rereading this, I think I'm unchanged in my opinion that I still like The Hobbit better.
Yeah, that's fair.
Fair. I mean, I don't dislike this, but it is way more effort to read.
Yeah.
And it isn't as nice of a story. The Hobbit is just so nice. There's like some really dislikable people here in Lord of the Rings, like Boromir, who just exists to disagree with people. And even when I agree with him, like about the Mines of Moria, like it becomes tiresome. Thank you very much, Carol, for coming and joining with me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon when we will discuss the 2 towers.
Excellent.
Not the 1 tower, not the 3 towers, the 2 towers.
Both of them. We won't leave either out.
We will be very fair and even-handed. We will be fair and balanced about the towers.
Absolutely.
Like and subscribe.